Bullets, beauty, badass. That's the stinger for the upcoming Gungrave Gore, but it describes the 2002 cult classic just as well. The game was developed and published by Red Entertainment, and born of a collaboration with manga artist Yasuhiro Naito. American fans might recognize that name as the creator of Trigun, one of those series that everyone except me seems to have watched back in the day. Trigun wasn't terribly successful in Japan, but when Cartoon Network brought it to the West, it found itself a new audience. Naito was attending a conference in America when a representative from Red Entertainment approached him and asked if he was interested in making a game. And so, Gungrave was born. The game starts with a girl carrying a large case, running away from a group of mobsters. Mika is the daughter of Big Daddy, the leader of a criminal organization known as the Syndicate. Despite its shady origins, he dreamed of a world where his wife and daughter could live in peace. But now he was betrayed by one of his followers, Harry McDowell, who staged an uprising, took control of the Syndicate, and killed Mika's parents. Her mother's final words were to take the contents of the case to a man called Beyond the Grave, who was once one of Big Daddy's most trusted retainers. Years ago, Grave was murdered and then brought back to life by the mysterious Dr. T through a technology called necrolization. His body will decompose if the blood isn't swapped with a fresh dose on a regular basis, but in exchange, this granted him superhuman abilities. Inside the case is a special pair of handguns that belongs to Grave, and true to his name, he came back from the dead to protect Mika and send Harry and his lackeys straight into their own graves. So the hero is awakened and sets off to kill the bad guys. Simple stuff, right? Well, it gets a bit weird later on, and depending on how far you want to go, a lot deeper as well. Doing research for this video left me in the strange conundrum of being more confused than I was after playing the game, because most sources out there throw in details from the anime adaptation that came a year later. It retells the story, expands the lore, and makes me second guess what I'm writing. Some of it isn't very important, like how Big Daddy's organization is called Millennium, but is only ever referred to as the Syndicate in-game. The manual also reveals that the game doesn't take place on Earth, but in some nondescript planet located who knows where. Besides that, it doesn't add much, besides some basic character descriptions. It's the anime adaptation that delves deeper into the world and its characters, since it retells the story in much more detail. It covers stuff like the events that led Grave to rise through the Syndicate's ranks, and the split between the layers of the city, where the rich and powerful live luxurious lives at the top, while the downtrodden below struggle with a constant state of violence and crime. This is only set dressing in the game, but plays a larger role in the anime. As for Grave himself, he is the poster child for ecchi anti-heroes from the 2000s. The kind of stuff that emo 12-year-olds would write on their MySpace profile, and I say that in the best way possible. Gungrave is putting on a show, and I'll gladly enjoy it for what it is. Grave is a hulking beast of a man with a nasty case of the hunchback, and through his actions he expresses his strong desire to protect those important to him, all without uttering a single word. He's a killing machine who slaughters humans by the thousands without a single speck of remorse, but Grave uses his abilities to protect, not murder. In a world consumed by darkness, this killing machine is a ray of light. During cutscenes, he's always brooding yet protective of those he cares about, while during gameplay he flips like a fidget spinner and slaps moves that would make John Woo very proud. I love how at the start of each mission, the game doesn't say mission started or whatever, it just goes kick their ass, while Grave does the funny gun spinning trick. It's awesome, and don't let your mom tell you otherwise. the meaningful name and tragic past, the red accents on his outfit, the skull's motive, the friggin' coffin he can bitch slap people with. Grave has that distinctive anime cool aura, with a lot of imagery that invokes symbolism, even if in reality the designer just thought it looked badass. The guy has a pair of handguns called the Twin Heads of Cerberus, and they fire off special 15mm rounds that never run out. And his undersized coffin also doubles as a friggin' rocket launcher. It makes no practical sense when you think about it, but it looks cool in the moment, and that's what matters. The rest of the world is equally crazy, in silly and in not so silly ways. It's a world with big scary nightmare fuel and villains that turn into weird monstrosities. But also a world with characters named Bob Poundmax and Rocket Billy Red Cadillac. Some might call it tacky or stupid or even cringe. But as a man-child, I've learned to enjoy this kind of stuff as an adult more than I ever did as a teenager. This is not a face, Mom. This is who I am. The gameplay is very straightforward, taking you through 6 levels with the simple goal of getting to the next objective. The layouts are also very simple, and there is no exploration or alternate paths, no puzzles to solve or keys to find. It's all focused entirely on shooting bad guys in style. God bless. Your main weapon is the handguns, which can be fired repeatedly by mashing the button or preferably turning the rapid setting on and then holding it. Your fingers will thank you. The handguns are your bread and butter, but you can also clean house by simply staying still while firing. This will cause Grave to swing his guns wildly and hit enemies all around him. And if some scatterbrained thug tries getting close, just give him a good faceful of coffin. Aiming is done automatically, but you can also press L1 to use the lock-on functionality, which locks onto a specific enemy, obviously, but also lets you strafe left and right. The regular movement is done through tank controls, and your only salvation is a quick 180-degree spin. The levels also feature an impressive amount of destructible objects, which at a glance seems to be nothing more than eye candy, but in reality they also have a gameplay purpose. Continuously hitting enemies and objects increases the beat counter, and the longer you keep it going, the faster the demolition gauge charges up. Every time it fills up, you're awarded ammo to fire demolition shots, which you unlock by progressing in the story. There are 4 in total, but it's more accurate to say that there are 2 unique ones and 2 powered up versions. You've got Shoot Rocket, Shoot Many Rocket, Spin to Win, and Spin to Win Harder. Alternatively, you can spend 1 demolition shot to heal yourself, recovering half of your health and fully replenishing your shield. Ammo also carries between levels, so you might want to save some for difficult areas. But don't save too much, because you can only carry a maximum of 9 shots. At the end of each stage, you get a ranking based on your performance, and then you're taken to an intermission screen where you can talk to Dr. T and Mika before advancing to the next stage. Again, simple stuff. The game is also very short, with a full playthrough lasting less than 2 hours, but it's also meant to be replayed for the sake of getting better scores. In many ways, Gungrave is a lot like an arcade game. It's more about perfecting your execution than diving headfirst into a mechanical soup and learning all the ins and outs of your abilities. Not that there's all that much to learn. Mechanically, it's a very simple game, and normal mode is easy enough that anyone can pick it up and blaze through it. It's only in the last stretch that it gets harder, but that's mostly because the game almost turns into a boss rush instead of focusing on fighting hordes of weak enemies. Not that it really matters, since you can always pause the game and restore your health in exchange for a demolition shot. Frankly, you could even call it mindless, since the gameplay mostly consists of holding the fire button. But blasting hordes of generic enemies with style is at least entertaining, even if dedicated players might have wished for the gameplay to include something more substantial. And thanks to the good pacing and its short length, the game manages to keep repetition and frustration away for as long as it sticks to what it does best. Press button, activate neuron. Some of this can be attributed to Gungrave being a budget title, and that's also made apparent in many facets of the visuals. But by utilizing cel shading, the developers managed to create visuals that survive the test of time better than AAA titles of its era that are entirely outdated compared to modern technology. Now keep in mind that I'm playing the game on an emulator, forcing the game into widescreen at a much higher rendering resolution and with a patch that disables interlacing. It doesn't look this clean on original hardware, and while the game targets 60 FPS, it can drop in heavy action. But with a little push from modern hardware, it holds up, and with some refinements, an official remaster could look pretty nice. Add widescreen support, some higher resolution textures, maybe some extra graphical effects, and there you go. The controls might seem a bit finicky if you're accustomed to modern standards, but once you get to grips with them, they are perfectly functional. Not great, but functional. You have no camera controls on the right analog stick, and the only way to quickly change direction is to perform a quick 180-degree spin. But it's clear that the developers had at least some awareness of the limitations. When you're stuck with slow tank controls and surrounded by dozens of enemies with hit-scan weapons, getting hit is inevitable, which is why Grave's shield recovers if you avoid damage for a few seconds. I mean, a Japanese company learning all the right lessons from Halo all the way back in 2002 instead of ham-fisting regenerating health into everything without understanding why it worked so well in that game? Damn bro, this brings a happy tear to my eyes. It's also why the game uses automatic targeting rather than a manual crosshair, and since the level design is mostly comprised of corridors and square rooms, the controls are less of a problem than they sound. The true problem lies with the tightness and precision of the mechanics, or lack thereof. When the game tries going off the beaten path, those limitations start rearing their head. The auto-aim works great 99% of the time, but on rare occasion it fails to register enemies above the player, and it's not clear how much range your handguns have thanks to a lack of feedback on a handful of boss battles. On some moments I found myself wondering if I was even doing the right thing, because sometimes their health bar was dropping and other times it wasn't. Like I said, Grave moves with tank controls, and unfortunately he has the hitboxes and the recovery times to match. And sure, he is basically a tank on legs, so point taken. But my point is that the gameplay needs to accommodate for that, and in a few specific occasions it doesn't quite manage that. The fight with Bunchi is the prime example. When you inflict enough damage, he runs away and hides behind one of the pillars, and if you get too close, you get bonked. But because the lock-on disengages and you turn and move so slowly, you can't quickly strafe around the pillars and start pounding him. Bunji also has a special cutscene attack, which is triggered by him charging towards the player. It's not difficult to dodge, but the hitboxes seem just a bit loose. The fight is still fun, but it perfectly encapsulates all the problems with the basic controls, and the best strategy I found was to simply spam the dive move. The final stage also has a completely different layout from everything else that came before it, and notably it has pits you can fall into, which either resets you back to the last checkpoint or forces you to walk all the way back. Again, it's not something that ruins the game, but it's another example of the movement and the camera getting in the way, compounded by the stairways and enemies sometimes knocking you back. But these moments are far and few. Gungrave is a prime example of short and sweet, a game limited in scope but crafted well enough that it flows almost perfectly. You can blast through the entire game in less than 2 hours, but it will leave you with a smile on your face and a desire to get more of it. Gungrave as a franchise was never a mainstream hit, and reviews didn't treat it particularly well. But despite that, the game found an audience, which helped greenlight 2003's anime adaptation. It then got a sequel in 2004, before laying dormant for over a decade until coming back as a virtual reality game. So yeah, Gungrave is pretty cool. You should play Gungrave. And then if you want more of it, you can go watch the anime, or try the sequel, or get hyped for gore because it looks like the kind of B-tier madness I love. Bullets, beauty, badass.